All right, in this video, I want to talk about World War III because that is what is going to shortly transpire here. But before it does, the rapture is going to happen. I believe we're going to be raptured before this breaks out, and the focus is going to actually be around Israel. And just like after World War I, we had the Balfour Declaration setting up for the establishment of the nation of Israel. And then after World War II, we actually have the establishment of the nation of Israel. After World War III, what's actually going to end up happening is Israel is going to be the head of the nations. I know people right now, they're speculating about World War III starting, and they're saying, oh, well, if that happens, Russia's going to win. Russia and China, they're going to win, and America is going to fall, Europe is going to fall, and Russia and China are going to be the new top dogs. No, it's actually going to be Israel. You see, after the rapture, what we see happening is Revelation chapter 6. At verse 1 it says, "And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard as it were the noise of thunder. One of the four beasts saying, Come and see. And I saw and behold a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him, and he went forth conquering and to conquer." Now, some people, for some reason, think that that is actually Jesus Christ. Yet Jesus Christ is the Lamb opening the seal. This person is a false Christ, a false Messiah, or the beast, or the Antichrist. He is given a crown, and he has a bow, and he's riding on a white horse, and he's going forth to conquer and conquering. This is a false Messiah who's going to come to support Israel and defend them in World War III, giving them the victory. As this guy's trying to pretend that he's the Messiah, Jesus Christ, and he has a bow. A lot of people think that's a bow and arrow. It could be a bow staff, but I actually think this actually has to do with this. Daniel 9:27, where it says here, "And he, being the prince that shall come, shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abomination he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and that determined shall be poured upon the desolate." Now, that bow, I actually think is a covenant. You may be thinking, bow, covenant, what are you talking about? Well, the first mention of a covenant, or a bow, I should say, is the rainbow. And the rainbow was a symbol of God's covenant with Noah and the earth, that he was not going to flood it with water again. And that gives us the first meaning of what a bow is. So when we see the Antichrist showing up with a bow, there's no mention of arrows or anything like that. This seems to be where he's establishing the actual covenant we read here in Daniel 9:27. This 7-year period, a week, a day for a year, right? And at this time, Israel is going to be established as the head of the nations, so they're going to actually think that this guy is the Messiah. And I believe at that time the Vatican is also going to move its headquarters to Jerusalem. So when we read about this harlot and this city being waxed rich and all this, I think it's because Israel ends up winning World War III, coming out on top. And there's something interesting that also has to tie into this. When we come over here to Revelation chapter 12, the woman here is, oh, this is Daniel 12. My bad. I meant to go to Revelation 12. Daniel 12 is talking about when Michael stands up for his people, Israel. And in Revelation 12, that's who stands up, Michael, right? To cast the dragon out of heaven. Well, the woman here is Israel. The 12 stars representing the 12 tribes of Israel, just like we see in Joseph's dream in Genesis, where he had a dream that the 11 stars are bowing down to him, and this is a representation of his brethren bowing down to him. Each star represented a tribe of Israel. And Israel gives birth to Jesus. The church doesn't give birth to Jesus. I think that's very key for people to understand. The church is a virgin and doesn't give birth to anybody. The church is like Eve that is taken out of the side of Adam. We're taken out of the side of Jesus. So the woman here is like the earth that brought forth Adam. It's Israel. And it's one we read about the man being taken up to his throne, that the woman, being Israel, flees into the wilderness for 3.5 years, right? This is not something that Mary had to do. This is not something the church is going to have to do. This is during the time of Jacob's trouble. Again, it's Jacob's trouble, not the church's trouble. This tribulation period is not known as the tribulation. It's known as the time of Jacob's trouble because it has to do with the nation of Israel. That's why right at the beginning, Revelation 17, you read about the 144,000 being sealed, 144,000 Jews, and then a great multitude of Gentiles, because there's a separation between Jew and Gentile because it's outside of the church. In the church, there is no Jew or Gentile, right? And at this time that I was talking about where the Antichrist is coming about in Revelation 6 at the first seal, I think this might have actually something to do with Trump, because he was kind of upset about how the Jews in America kind of turning on him. So, but he was saying that's messed up because Israel loves me. They even printed a depiction of him on one of their temple coins. They really do love Trump in Israel. And what I can see happening is at the end of World War III, America is destroyed or crippled. And Trump actually moves forces to Israel to support Israel and ends up acting as their Messiah. Sounds a bit weird, but this is just a bit of a speculation. It could be someone like Trump who's just as arrogant and pompous as he is. But the way he's accepted by Israel, it makes a lot of sense. Especially coming back here to Revelation chapter 12, when this woman flees, it says at verse 14, and the woman were given 2 wings of a great eagle, that she may fly into the wilderness for 3.5 years. I believe that great eagle is America. I believe in Daniel chapter 7 that the lion with the wings, good chance that that has to do with the start of the church age. We see in the time of Israel it had to do with a statue of metals, gold, silver, bronze, and iron, and then ends with iron and clay. While in Daniel 7, I believe it has to do with the church age, that gap between the legs of iron and the feet of iron and clay. There's a gap there when Jesus shows up. And then there's a church age. And I believe that has to do with the 7 beasts, not the 7 beasts, Daniel chapter 7 with the 4 different beasts. And the first one I think actually has to do with England. And the wings being taken from the lion, I think represents the establishment of America. And America, I think, is going to fall, and its support and all that it has is going to be given to Israel at the end of World War III. And that's why it has the wings of a great eagle to be able to flee into the wilderness. So Oh yeah, I mean, I could go on a little bit, which I might, but that's a rough summary of World War III that's about to kick off. We see things heating up between Israel and Iran. We see America coming over with subs against Iran. We see China getting ready to go after Tibet. Russia's already doing what they're doing with the Ukraine. Uh, BRICS is forming. Um, People are tossing out the U.S. dollar, and things are changing. And when there's an economic change, there's war. So that's what's going to happen. World War, excuse me, World War, and then like at each World War, Israel's exalted. That's what's going to end up happening. And then uh, halfway through this peace treaty, because that's what the treaty's all about, having some peace, right? It's for 7 years to try to stop the war. And that's how the war comes to an end, is with this peace treaty. And for 3.5 years, the two witnesses are going to be in Jerusalem preaching, again showing the church is gone. That's why the focus is on Israel, and the two witnesses are preaching in Israel, in Jerusalem. And after 3.5 years, the beast that we read here about in Revelation chapter 12 actually comes up out of the sea, Revelation 13. And as we read at the end of Revelation 11, I don't know why I say we read. I didn't go through it in this video, but I'm assuming you've read it. So my bad if I made an ass of myself with that. But anyway, at the end of Revelation 11, the beast comes out of the bottomless pit, which I believe has to do with the ocean, the abyss, and that's where the beast comes up out of. Kills the two witnesses, claims to be God in the Jewish temple. I believe Trump is arrogant enough to do that, and I think some zealous Jews end up assassinating him. But he then raises from the dead, breaks the treaty with Israel, and turns on them because they didn't accept him as God. And then, things really hit the fan after that. And it becomes blatantly obvious that he is who he is. And a lot of people think the Antichrist is some young, attractive, charismatic man that everybody's just enamored with. But when you read through the scriptures, especially Revelation, also in Daniel, this Antichrist doesn't have a smooth sailing where everybody's just accepting him. He's constantly having to put down people who are not accepting his rule, as in he's creating a lot of martyrs. And there's a lot of people as countries standing up against him. And they end up actually fighting against him, and he has to quench the rebellion and all that. So he's just constantly trying to establish and maintain his kingdom. That's what I see actually happening here. Granted, it could be off, could be completely wrong, but going through this over and over and mapping it out, that's how I'm starting to see it. So, with all that being said, I think I'll just wrap up by talking about the whore of Babylon, and I guess the beast that comes out of the land. That's like a lamb-like beast. I think that might actually have to do with Israel. I think where the Antichrist comes back to life is in Jerusalem, and a good lot of the people end up wanting to support him as God. And I think he might be the head of some kind of UN, some kind of NATO thing, some new revived Roman Empire. And he's going to be a king and high priest kind of thing going on. That's why I think the UN or whatever it's called at this time, is going to be in Jerusalem, along with the Vatican, if it's still called the Vatican. Their headquarters there. And I think Israel is going to end up supporting that as a whole, as a majority, I should say, while the actual true believers fly off, which is interesting that Jesus actually said that in Matthew chapter 24. Pray that your flight be not in the winter on the Sabbath day. He didn't say, pray that you don't have to flee. He said flight. That's interesting. And it says the great wings take them to this Petra place where they're protected for 3.5 years. So they knew they were going to be flying there. That's kind of interesting. So, this harlot, I think, is a mixture of what we see today, the Catholic Church, which is a mixture of pagan religions, Judaism and Christianity all come together. That's why it's called the universal religion. Catholicism, that's what it means. It's just an amalgamation of all the religions that Rome has conquered, and it's already mixing now with Islam. And I think Israel is going to try to mix with them also so that it can have peace. And I think they're going to be the headquarters of the New World Order. And that's why a lot of people are going to hate them and wanting to slaughter them. It's going to be a weird, mixed up kind of world. But so this harlot Babylon thing, I think, actually has to do with Jerusalem, where in Revelation, I think it's actually chapter 11, where the two witnesses are talked about preaching there. It says it's spiritually called Egypt and Sodom. And Israel had to come out of Egypt before the plagues came out. And Lot had to come out before Sodom was destroyed. And that's where the Pharaoh reigned, right? Where he ruled. And he wouldn't let the people go. And I think that's Babylon the Great. Also another depiction of the Antichrist with Nebuchadnezzar ruling in Babylon, forcing everybody to bow down to this statue, the image of the beast, right? So there's all kinds of connections to all this stuff being centered around Israel and Jerusalem. And we know that's where things are going to really kick off, because Jesus talks about that's the abomination of desolation is coming. The Antichrist is going to show himself as God there. He says, hey, you see this, flee. Pray that your flight be not in the winter. And let's actually look at that, just to make sure I'm remembering that correctly. I'm telling you that he said flight when he didn't. He said flee. I don't want to have to make an apology video. So let's just clarify that, and I'll wrap this up. And I know I keep saying I'll wrap it up, and then I'll just keep going. But, let's go through here. The abomination of desolation, verse 15. So we know that abomination of desolation is a future event. He says, let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. And then he says, right here, verse 20, but pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. For then there shall be great tribulation. And where? In Israel, because it's the time of Jacob's trouble. So isn't that interesting? Their flight, because they're given the wings of a great eagle, which I think actually has to do with America. And I think they're going to get a lot of our military power and support after World War III. I don't know if Trump just acts as some kind of ambassador or something, but I don't know. He's looking a lot like an Antichrist, because he's supporting the Jews right now, right? Israel loves him, but he also has a lot of backing of these, neo-Nazis, some fascists, far-right fascists, and they don't quite like the Jews all too much. So it looks like you can just see history repeating itself. But yeah, kind of just rambling on, putting all this stuff together while I'm doing the video. So thank you for watching. If you sat through this, you want to put your 2 cents in, let me know. But anyway, thanks for watching and take care.